Hey folks, it's Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation, home of the world's largest and fastest online triathlon team, as well as the first time finish guarantee and the 4 keys of race execution. I want to thank you for joining me tonight for our weekly coaches chat. Tonight is September 23rd, and my apologies for the delay. September 23rd in my house is double soccer practice followed by kids open house while my wife is awesome at work on a late night special meeting with public safety. And as a result, wow, it was a crazy night. I just want to give a shout out to anyone out there who is a single parent. Oh my God, I have so much respect for you. So that said, tonight I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about an annual review. Many triathletes are familiar with what it means to create an annual plan. Triathletes love planning, but that emphasis on planning generally has sort of a very forward-oriented focus. Much like a racehorse with blinders on, triathletes tend to be type A, driven, forward-focused, whatever just happened, but next time I'm going to crush it type people, and as a result, they spend very little time actually learning from what they've done. And I think that is a huge piece of the puzzle in terms of finding improvement. What we do inside Endurance Nation is spend a great deal of time working on education and supporting our athletes. And people ask me all the time, I get all sorts of questions like, what should my pace be on the run? Or how much should I eat or drink on race day? Or what kind of shoes should I have, etc. All of those are great questions, and I can certainly answer them. I can answer them in a vacuum. But the reality is that your performance, how you handled nutrition before, what you ate, what you drank, what type of shoes you wear now, all of these things, those are baselines. That's information that you have about yourself. And that information, that starting point, where you come from, is just as important as where you want to go. It's just like building a bridge, knowing where you want it to end up, but having no idea about where you're starting. Just not going to work, all right? So today I'm going to cover the concept of what I mean by an annual review. And this is meant to be sort of a very lightweight, simple exercise for you. For those of you who've been diligent and thoughtful in terms of outlining your year and capturing your training data and race reports and information, then this won't be so much of a leap. But for those of you who are, tried and true, all hands on deck, super hardcore, never look back type athletes, then this can involve some legwork for you. But the upside for you is that there's plenty of opportunity for growth. So I don't want to discourage you, I want to encourage you. So before I forget, let me just jump in and just say quickly that there are some official ways that you can get support from Endurance Nation. Not everyone may know that. Some of you are not on the team. So I do want to be clear that the way the general process works is to submit your races for the upcoming season or for the next block of training. Coach Rich gives you your personalized triathlon season roadmap, something created by Endurance Nation, help you map out your year. I give you a phone call, we walk through your year, where you're at, where you're going, give you some input on how you want to adjust your schedule or perhaps different nuances or things you want to look at. Then you're off in training and racing. That's all well and good, but it all starts now and goes forward and doesn't really take into account everything that you bring to the table. So part of my phone call process is to kind of get to know people, especially the new athletes, just to understand a little bit more about you. Are you, a lifetime, athlete? Are you a couchaholic who enjoys napping, but stumbled across a late night broadcast of Ironman and signed up? Are you doing this for charity? Are you doing this with an injury? Do you have a history in endurance sports? Have you never done endurance sports? Were you a gymnast before? What's your background? I need to know all these things. And so I kind of introduce you to that concept of a review early on. And it's important for you to keep that in mind as you move through your progression as a year, because every year your goals evolve. And so too have you gained another 12 months of experience. And it's so important that we capture, we sort of revisit those lessons learned, cement them so we can move forward. Because let me play out a scenario for you. Here you are on race day, and you're getting ready. You're getting ready for your big race, your A race of the year, and you're out there on the bike, and you're about mile 20. It's just over an hour in, and you're hammering along. all of a sudden your stomach doesn't feel so good, and a little light bulb goes off in your head, and you say, this happened to me last year. Now, at that very moment, a bunch of things have to happen. Hopefully, neurons start going off in your head, and you say, wow, this is what happened last year, this is what I did, it worked or it didn't work, and because of that process, I am going to either do what I did before or do something different, which I had already determined as a result of my lessons learned from that race. All of that has to happen relatively quickly, within a minute or two, for you to start making decisions to fix that problem before it becomes something permanent or ultimately affects your finish. For the athlete who never looks back, who never learns from experience, they drop their chain in the first race of the year, and guess what? Last race of the year, still dropping their chain. They had a stomach problem last year and the year before. Guess what? This year didn't really think about it. Stomach problem again. Sounds tragic, but ironically, it's driven by a lack of introspection, a lack of the ability to sit down and take a hard look at you. You know, you are a system on race day. You are a system in training, and the only way you can get better is to improve that system. It's garbage in, garbage out. We want to improve what goes in. And a huge part of that is reviewing your year. So, enough giving you sort of the background, and I want to sort of explain that element. So the first thing I recommend people start with is their race results. This is super easy to do and very simple. Ideally, you'll have a set of races you did this year, and you'll have a set of results from them. I'm not so much worried about, like, did I PR or not PR? You know, was that my best bike or not my best bike? Very rarely do people do the same race year after year and in very similar conditions such that we can compare them. That said, each of those races is an opportunity to see how well your system works, right? And so you've had an opportunity to test it in a shorter race, perhaps a longer race, perhaps in a running race or a cycling event. There's a bunch of different events that you did across your year, and all of them are part of your experience now. So we want to go back and be able to capture those race reports, and most importantly of all, we want to understand your lessons learned. So I'm not so much worried like, I had a great bike and it was awesome and I'm so fast, oh my God, everybody look out for me. That's not such a helpful race report, you know. But if you said, you know, great bike, I struggled with steep pitches on the hills, lesson learned, next time I need to get better gearing. So as you're thinking about your races for this year, mental note, want to get better gearing, okay? Perhaps a lesson learned was, you know, bottles ejected out of rear seat cage holder need new bicycle bottle holders or cages or system to hold my hydration. That's an awesome lesson learned for you, okay? So you're going to go through these race reports and just identify all your lessons learned. In general, I break it down by discipline, swim, bike, run, and I also break it down as pre and post race as well. How did I feel before the race, kind of leading in paper? How did I feel after the race? Ideally, for each of those elements, you will have 3 points. So you have 3 pre-points, 3 swim, 3 bike, 3 run, and 3 post points. How did you recover from the race? Did you make good decisions, bad decisions, etc.? You go across your year. You probably have 5 or 6 sort of more major races. You can have a set of bullet points from each of these races. It takes about 5 minutes a race, okay? So if you've got 6 races, we're talking half an hour. Then you take all those bullet points and you start looking at them, and we're looking for commonalities, okay? Some of them may be outliers, like just specific to a hilly course or just specific to a very hot race, for example. But for everyone else, or for the other elements, they may map up. You may find yourself having consistent notes about gearing or about nutrition or about early run pacing or about you know, anxiety on the swim, whatever it may be. So as you start to get those lessons learned, we want to compile them in one place because that's super important. And that becomes our master document of things that we want to change moving forward. Okay. So step 1, start with those race experiences and race reports and combine the information from pre, post, along with your swim, bike, and run to get 3 sets of bullet points each, so you have a set of information that you can then consolidate and use to make better informed decisions the next time that you race. Okay? The next thing that I recommend people take a look at is their training log. Hopefully you understand that Endurance Nation is really, really keen on you tracking your training. We give you a free spreadsheet to do it. We encourage people to use any online service that makes sense for them, whether it's something as simple as Strava or something as complex as Training Peaks, whatever it may be that gets you excited to track your data, we absolutely want you to do it. You want to track your training log and just see how it worked for you. Look back over your year. Times in your year where you got sick or you were injured, you want to identify that point. So let's say I wake up on August 1st of this year and I am sick. Well, I can go back and I'm trying to fix it now because I'm forward focused. I need to fix it before my race, right? But in the future, I can go back in time and look at that and say, hey, look, I got sick on August 1st. What did I do in the 2 weeks leading up to August 1st that caused me to be sick? I'm assuming it's not just because I didn't use enough soap when I washed my hands, or somebody sneezed in my general direction and it went into my face. It's more often than not, as an endurance athlete, you simply run yourself down. Your immune system, your defenses are down, your immune system gets compromised. It's so easy to get sick, especially as you go through larger volume swings in your year. So take a look at your year, see if we can smooth things out, see if it was something work-related or stress-related, or other things that we can do to either avoid those situations or help offset them in the future, all which are super important. Another element about the training log review that's important is just to see how much you put up every week. It's a great chart to have swim, bike, and run volume by time, week to week to week, because we can see where your peak weeks were and your peak efforts were. We can also see where your recovery efforts were. And as hard as training is when you're in the training, I find that the minute the training is done, everybody looks back at it and says, well, I should have just done more. What was I thinking, taking it so easy? Meanwhile, when you're in the midst of that 4.5 or 5 hour ride, at like hour 3, you're like, please make the bad man stop. This is terrible. I can't go on. So there's definitely a disconnect between the experience of doing that workout and then the reflection time upon that workout. The resonance that you get, that sensation of the workout definitely diminishes over time. And training logs are great tools, because I've worked with more than one athlete who said, well, last year I did lots of running, I really improved. And you go back and you take a look at the data and you say, wow, Jimmy, you say you ran a lot more, but when I add up the numbers from your training log, you actually ran 250 miles less than last year. And last year we said you need to run more. So you didn't actually run more, right? So things like that, being able to sort of consolidate and look at that data is super helpful. Another element that I recommend people to check into, it sounds a little wishy-washy. I super recommend getting some feedback from your family or your spouse or your significant other, your partner, whatever it may be, whoever it may be, as to how your year went. Because remember, you are experiencing your year, your race from the driver's seat, where you're in control, and we're not so necessarily concerned about other elements of our lives while we're so focused on our training. And there's definitely times in there where you can really miss out or misstep and cause problems at home, or just long-term stress, whatever it may be. So I really recommend checking in with your spouse. This is an opportunity for them to weigh in and let you know, hey, you know what? I really did enjoy this year and what you accomplished, and I want to do more of that. Or, look, we got rain on for the 3rd consecutive year in Lake Placid. Can we please pack some umbrellas? Or, you training for a May race through tax season is a nightmare, husband or wife accountant of mine. And as a result, I think it was terrible, so we're not going to do any more races in that time frame. So there'll be some lessons learned from them, and they won't be so visceral, so numbers or data-driven as the experiences that we have collected through our year of training and racing, but they offer an excellent counterpart to you, and also, hopefully, an opportunity to really improve what you're doing by including their feedback in the process, and not just moving workouts around, but doing a better job about scheduling workouts and prioritizing them and communicating all the stuff that you're doing. All of that adds up. Okay. So we talked about race results and looking at those reports and those lessons learned, compiling those. Okay. We talked about looking at your training log and understanding what you actually accomplished, how that worked from month to month, and other areas where you may want to improve in the future. It's easy to say you want to get 20 minutes faster on the bike, but when you go back and look at how much time that takes, you may have a different understanding when you look at your calendar. And then finally, goal setting is the fourth component of an annual review. So we've done the reviews, we've done looking at the data, we've done doing a good job of sort of assessing, where am I right now? So the next step is trying to identify some goals, but not just any goals. Goals that drive me nuts are, I want to be top 10 in my age group. You have no idea who's going to show up. Nobody could show up, or everybody could show up. And not getting top 10 shouldn't really be the ultimate arbiter of your experience in that race, right? So I prefer that we set training-related goals. So training is the process. The process is what gets you ready to race. Racing is only successful based upon how well you manage that process. So we set some training process-oriented goals to help create conditions. So if we know we want you to be running more, we may have you use frequency as a tool. So we'll add 2 or 3 30-minute runs. Well, you start adding that up from week to week. You start having some accountability across your training plan and seeing how those additional miles kind of add some meat to the bone that is your training. You may find that to be very, very helpful. Okay. Another element of goal setting is being objective as possible. We want to say something like, ride, do one FTP interval ride a week, at least 60 minutes. So you've got that on your schedule, you build it in. More than 60 minutes win, less than 60 minutes, got to improve that. But at least you have that objective goal because that that FTP work, for example, is going to help you boost your threshold. Now, Coach Rich and I are there on the forums as well as your teammates to help you discern how you take this goal you have around performance in a particular discipline and then organize your time accordingly to see the most out of the work that you're putting in from a training perspective. But I really recommend that you do your best to remain objective because some of the feedback you're going to get may make you defensive. Why'd you run those miles so slow, or how come you're asking so-and-so to go up with you and not me or the other person. It's very easy to kind of get distracted by all the other elements that go on. So we want you to be very focused and dialed in. Finally, the other reason why I like looking at the process in the training log is when you have a year ahead of you, you get to distribute that work across the whole year. So you could say, wow, I really want to swim 15K a week as a goal, 5 3K sessions or 3 5K sessions or whatever that is. That's one thing to say. It's another thing to actually make it happen. And you don't necessarily, if you're looking at, say you're looking at 15K of swimming for 6 weeks in your final build-up, that's that's a 15K across 6 weeks. Well, if you took that down to just 2 workouts a week instead of 3 workouts a week, that moves you from those 12 weeks to, say, 18 weeks of training and sort of expands that timeline. So what I'm getting at here is that setting your annual review and doing it properly gives you an opportunity to take the goals that you want to achieve relative to your triathlon fitness and then distribute them carefully and intentionally across your year so that you achieve, run fitness, cycling fitness, swim fitness without that mass intersection of fatigue in all 3 disciplines, plus stress at home, stress at the job, that ultimately combines to really undermine your ability to be your best. Okay? So to recap the annual review, we go off with our race results and reports and we get those lessons learned out of there. Okay? Number 2, we take a look at your training log, see what you actually did versus what you thought you did, and then make some ballpark projections around how you want to handle critical volume across your year as you move across the phases. Okay. Number 3, we take a look at family spouse feedback, get some input on our partners think and how we can improve our ability to be an active, engaged part of the family or community without sacrificing training. And then we talked about goal setting. How do we determine what are the right types of goals? What goals make sense? What goals are motivational and achievable? Right. And then ultimately we conclude here with race selection. Now that you have learned your lessons from your races, you may have a very different perspective. You may have just done a hot race in, say, Buffalo Springs, done 70.3 there. You do that race. Then your friends call you and tell you that they want you to go do some other crazy hot race, in April or May. Say you got to travel to get to it. That's a tight time frame and not a lot of opportunity for you to necessarily learn or improve. But what you can do is say, wow, how is my experience on this course relative to experience on other types of courses? Flatter ones, more steadier climbs, a longer bike portion than normal, whatever it may be. We start taking your numbers and dropping them into a space where you can actually put them to work. So if you're strong on a flat course, we put you on a flat course. If you're strong in the hills, we work to get you on a hilly course. Definitely as your experience and strengths grow, your ability to ride any course at a level of which you determine is the best race effort for you becomes easy. But until you get to that point, that strength level, that experience level, making the right decisions on a case-by-case basis for each race is super important. Okay? So that right there is kind of my review for everything that goes into what it means to be managing your season and ultimately taking a look at your end-of-season process for capturing your lessons learned and then driving that information into the remainder of your year and the following year to really make the most of it. I see we've got Doug and Mariah. We've had some other people. Juan's been in and out. If you guys do have questions for me, I would love to see them. You can simply go right ahead and put them in the chat box there, and I will answer them right away. In the meantime, I'm going to stand up here and take a quick stretch and beverage break as I do this. As you may or may not know, I am in the final throes of training for Ironman Kona. That's me up here, Coach Patrick. And man, I'm pretty darn tired. It's not easy staying up after 9:30 at night when you're pretty beat down and you've pretended to be a single parent for like 5 hours, and I'm utterly overwhelmed despite how awesome my girls are and everything else. So I thank you for your patience and understanding. I may have to adjust the chat times so I don't get overwhelmed. Well, before I go, some other things that come to mind for me at the end of the year. One of the reasons why I enjoy the annual review process is it's kind of a time to sort of call a timeout on moving forward and crushing things. It's so easy to move from big season building to an A race, do the A race, good or bad. You throw in another race, a B-level race, because you're like, well, I'm so fit, I might as well do something. And then you transition out of that, and then all of a sudden your friends are like, come do this marathon or this half marathon with us or this run relay, and this, you're dropped into one of those running races. Before you know it, this period of time after your big race when you were meant to be recovering, consolidating fitness, and then refocusing on your build, you kind of, you skipped over that part and really set yourself up for failure. So the broader lesson learned for me is to not skip, is to really take the time and dig in a little bit and determine what makes you better, because that process, anyone can do that, whether you're 17-hour Ironman finisher or 9-hour Ironman finisher. You all have to improve, and a lot of that improvement lies within making better decisions, more informed decisions, learning from your mistakes, and also the smart decisions that you made. And the only way you can do that is to really capture that information and put it down in a place where you can easily access it later. I can't say enough about the importance of consistency and then driving your fitness across a whole year. Really thinking about what it means to achieve your goals in as long a time frame as possible. The longer that time frame is, the more sustainable it needs to be. And when things get hard and intense in endurance nation workouts, you can't necessarily force that into the program. You got to be super smart, make sure it fits, make sure that you're recovered, etc. And all of that is built into what it means to have a great race. And we start that off with our own template for an annual review. But I strongly encourage you to check it out yourself. Okay. So this has been Coach Patrick from Endurance Nation, the world's largest and fastest online triathlon team. You can find us online at www.endurancenation.us, where you can go ahead and create your own free 7-day trial, explore the team, see all of our resources, and then eventually decide whether or not you want to unlock the team and go all in and get ready for the next big race. We've been doing this for 7 years, no safety net. But Trish and I have over 600 athletes on the inside. It's a great community. We'd love to have you be a part of what we got going on. This is Coach Patrick from Endurance Nation signing off from our September 23rd Coaches Chat on what it means to create an annual review. Thank you for your time. This recording will be placed in the resource area for members. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you guys online or at the races.